I have a confession to make. I am a chronic tab collector. Digitally jumping from one tab to the next is how I spend most of my days online. Several tabs are opened, with enticing news headlines, Google Docs, social networking, and other random pages being loaded into them, and then several of them are abandoned for several weeks. When I don't return to finish the task I've started, I leave the tabs open with a sense of hope that, to be honest, isn't supported by my previous performance. As a result, it was only logical that this was the first habit I addressed when I resolved to reform my internet and device usage in preparation for the new year. I sought counsel from Doreen Dodgen-Magee, a psychologist who has written extensively about technology use, and is the author of Restart, Designing a Healthy Post-Pandemic Life, to help me achieve greater concentration and less distraction. She provided some excellent suggestions that went above and beyond the sensible advice you've already heard, such as setting a timer for social media and uninstalling apps from your phone. But first, allow me to describe what happened when I attempted to work in a single tab rather than the 26 tabs that were open in my Chrome browser and 14 tabs that were open in my Safari browser. My first order of business was to clean out my work inbox. Every morning, I receive at least 100 emails, with only about a half dozen of them deserving of my time and effort to consider. On most days, I switch back and forth between email and other tabs, which are frequently Twitter, Facebook, or news websites, among others. As a reporting and thread gathering tool, social media serves as a conduit for journalists. But this time, instead of using multiple tabs, I sat down with only one and combed through the messages, feeling particularly focused on my task. After finishing, I returned to my 25 other open tabs and didn't feel overwhelmed at all. It was far worse than that, in fact. Instead, I was compelled to select the tab that would provide me with the greatest amount of satisfaction. Currently, it was Twitter. A never-ending stream of distractions may provide new insight into the Omicron variation or funny conflict between high-profile users, depending on the situation. Research tests in which rats are given doses of an addictive drug, such as morphine or cocaine, call to mind the way those rodents will sometimes just keep pressing a lever to obtain their hit, even if doing so will result in their death. At that point, it occurred to me that my brain had not arranged my decisions based on true priorities, but rather on a physiological experience of immediate fulfillment and enjoyment. My delusion that I was smarter than that was shattered by the revelation. It was impossible for me to deny the truth. I was having an issue. There were some modifications I needed to make in order to retrain my brain to shift away from distraction-based urges and toward moments of intense, prolonged concentration. Dodgen-Magee outlines specific ways for accomplishing this goal. Introducing pauses before I reached for my phone or opened a new tab, putting my phone down or closing a window after I've accomplished a specific goal, unitasking or focusing on one task rather than attempting to juggle multiple tasks at the same time, changing my physical environment so that there is a tactile activity that helps ground me when I'm spending a lot of time online, and silencing and distancing my devices, specifically my phone. The 5 practices that Dodgen-Magee has also developed a detailed approach for determining which habits are the most appropriate for you to adopt in your life. First and foremost, she recommends that you analyze your values to see whether your technology use is consistent with the things that are most important to you, which could include principles such as authenticity, expertise, and competency. Dodgen-Magee provides a plethora of examples from which to choose as a starting point. After that, do a comparison between the 2 or 3 habits that dominate your everyday life and your most cherished moral principles. Someone who values curiosity, for example, might believe that by exploring their hobbies online, they are fulfilling that desire. While browsing is enjoyable, Dodgen-Magee believes that when it leads to nothing else, such as participating in a pottery class or learning a new language, it becomes a one-dimensional endeavor with little in the way of actual enjoyment. As a result, it becomes a habit to set goals for improvement. Dodgen-Magee recommends the use of spotting points in order to build new habits. As an example, consider the gymnast or snowboarder who is tumbling through the air, but who keeps her gaze locked on a single point so that she does not come crashing down. As Dodgen-Magee argues, we require the same kinds of reference points to build healthy habits as our devices, and the algorithms that drive our internet use do to drag us away from the things that are most important to us, such as time spent with family, personal hobbies, and screenless excursions. Thus, a spotting point might be a value, aim, or role, such as parent or friend, that we utilize to keep us grounded and prevent us from acting on our worst online impulses. I believe we have all recognized the importance of being informed and quote-unquote connected when in reality, this does not align with the majority of our values. I think we've all recognized the importance of being informed and quote-unquote connected when in reality, that doesn't align with the majority of our values, Dodgen-Magee explains. When you're trying to find your way to 18 different true norths, let's actually take a look at your values, and see if they're actually even reachable through interaction with your technology, says the author. To be really honest, I haven't yet completed the values assessment process that Dodgen-Magee suggests in a step-by-step fashion, partially because I knew I required more concentration and less distraction from the beginning. However, it is an exercise worth attempting, and it is something I intend to practice in order to better reinforce the following new technological habits that I have embraced. Include pauses in your design. In some ways, taking a breath before reaching for a device or clicking a link might be the most difficult skill to master. Dodgen-Magee, on the other hand, believes it is necessary for reacclimating the brain to a less frenetic way of life. Once an impulse to check out the clothing deal that just arrived in your inbox, or to try to reach the next level in the game that you've been playing, or to answer to the last 5 texts in a group thread is followed without interruption, your brain will repeat that pattern over and over. Dodgen-Magee advocates doing something to break the habit of going from one click to the next in order to achieve more internal calm and exterior control over my digital choices, according to me. Setting a timer for 2 minutes every time you feel tempted to go online or use a device when it isn't required at the time is something she recommends doing. Dodgen-Magee says in Restart that pausing between a reflex and acting in a customary manner provides the brain with an opportunity to learn new skills and competence. The concept of expertise appeals to me. In the case of waiting before randomly checking to see if the freshly remodeled property in my neighborhood has sold and for how much, my brain is capable of mastering the task. One of my mundane interests is home selling prices, which has become a habit thanks to the internet, but I don't have to grab for my phone on a dog walk to receive the small rush that comes with knowing exactly how much someone paid for a house in a particular neighborhood. Even if I absolutely must know, I can just schedule a weekly check-in time rather than making it a daily, unpredictable, and time-consuming habit. Dodgen-Magee also proposes using the acronym HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, which is used in 12-step recovery programs, to incorporate breaks during tech use. When the urge to scroll, click, browse, or play a game overtakes you, take a moment to notice whether you're experiencing any of the emotions or sensations listed in the HALT acronym. If this is the case, address them first, possibly with a food, meditation, an outside walk, or another relaxing activity of your choosing. That break may make it easier to refrain from using technology and to continue spotting in the direction of your ideals. Remove your gaze from the screen. I'm not a heavy Twitter user, but there's something about the social media network that appeals to me. In addition to reading other people's interactions and learning about new expertise, I really like gaining insights into what is on people's thoughts. When I'm scrolling through Twitter, it feels like I'm holding a metal detector in my hands, scouring the ground for a hidden nugget of gold. As a result, it should come as no surprise that Twitter is my first port of call after finishing a piece, checking my email, or completing another assignment. The act of opening that window feels like a reward, but I end up wasting a lot of time scrolling and losing track of what I'm trying to do. That's why I appreciated Dodgen-Magee's that I turn away from my computer screen once I'd done a task successfully. This is a form of pause, but in the opposite direction of the last one. My brain is given an additional opportunity to steer itself with purpose and meaning when I put the phone down after responding to a text message rather than arbitrarily checking the bank account or fitness tracker just because I have the ability to do so. While it is entirely up to me what I do in the minutes between meetings, deadlines, or online activities is entirely up to me, Dodgen-Magee advises choosing an activity that is consistent with my beliefs and goals. 5 minutes of physical therapy or a nice letter left on my daughter's desk good enough for me at the moment. Change the physical environment in which you live. The more time you spend online, the more likely it is that you will lose touch with your physical self. Body posture deteriorates, breathing becomes more rapid, and muscles tense. She recommends placing something tactile on your desk or in the area where you spend the most time looking at your phone or tablet to help you reconnect with your physical self. Kinetic sand, fidget toys, Legos, or something similar might be used in this way. To display my garment buttons, I chose a medium-sized bowl that was filled with buttons that I had collected from members of my Facebook Buy Nothing group. While my mother was shopping at the fabric store where I grew up, I used to dip my arm into a large bin of buttons and find the motion incredibly calming. In order to restore tranquility when I'm feeling extremely pressured at work, or when I'm having difficulty turning away from my computer screen, I immerse my hand into the buttons. Because of this, it is easier to exercise my other behaviors, such as pausing or looking away from the screen. You noticed? Prior to implementing Dodgen instructions, McGee's my technological usage resembled a maze that was tough to navigate. I'd start with my email, then make a detour to Slack, then return to my inbox, where I'd click on an article, read half of it, then text a friend about it, check Twitter to see if anyone else had commented on it, and then completely forget what I'd set out to do to begin with. My own personal technology use, which included a lot of scrolling, messaging, weather checking, online cart filling, and podcast listening, was no less hectic than the rest of the world's technology use. Dodgen-Magee has reminded me that multitasking is not a real thing in this world. It's just not possible for the brain to accomplish it. Dodgen-Magee believes that task switching is a more appropriate term for multitasking. Nevertheless, as a parent, spouse, sister, daughter, friend, and employee, I managed to delude myself into believing otherwise. While also preparing dinner, I packed my online grocery cart with fresh produce. Despite the fact that I should have done so, I meditated without turning off notifications. While walking and listening to a podcast, I sent my parents images of their grandchildren through text message. Now, I'm intentionally incorporating pauses and making the conscious decision to focus on one task at a time. Despite the fact that I'm not always successful, the truth is that it's liberating. Surprisingly, my brain appears to be less overburdened. Staying present during real-time Slack and text chats with friends, rather than switching between windows and work during the small silences while waiting for the other person to answer, has been a new challenge for me recently. It's more satisfying than I had anticipated. Disconnect and put some distance between you and your devices. This may be the most common recommendation you've heard, but it's also the most important. Spend periods of time throughout the day, even 3-minute spurts, without your phone or other electronic gadget. It is necessary to have quiet and stillness in order to truly refocus the brain toward silence and stillness. The iOS 15 Focus Mode, which allows you to schedule silent notifications during the workday, as well as at night and while driving, is something I'm playing with. During dinner time, I've experimented with putting my phone into a zippered pouch. Occasionally, the thought that I'm missing something, such as a crucial SMS or Slack, pulls at my heartstrings while I'm in stillness. The vast majority of the time, nothing happened. At the end of the day, I just want to be at ease with nothing occurring. After nearly 2 years of pandemic pandemonium, I am grateful that my personal life has remained relatively unaffected by the outbreak. All I have to do now is maintain training my brain that this is also a positive thing.